A Hidden World. Part 7. Your reflection in my mirror. I looked at the moon and cried non-stop. He was glad to be alone. I haven't seen or felt it for years. He hated the feeling he felt, that pain so great it broke his heart. Experiences like that in the supernatural did not have them as a child. When he saw himself in the mirror he did not see his reflection, but his. The last time he saw him in his physical body was on the beach. He smiled but did not approach, his body froze. He couldn't move until he disappeared from the place. He had opted for sorcery, she for Jesus Christ. Besides, her economic level was bad and her family saw her as a kind of drone or parasite, they would never accept her. He had opted for sorcery, she for Jesus Christ. Besides, her economic level was bad and her family saw her as a kind of drone or parasite, they would never accept her. It had been more than 20 years, I didn't understand why I felt that way. She knew that they coveted the spiritual degrees of beings like her, they should accept her for what she was and not for what she had on the spiritual plane, which is why she had hidden everything from her. It was rejected by the economic by them and there was no turning back. Besides, she was not willing to stop being a Christian, not because of what the people in the church said, but because of her personal experience with God. It was her reason for existing. To add to her anguish, again the lesbian half-lawyer, who messed with her ex, with her sister-in-law who planned all the hacking and left her as a prostitute with the family of her other relationship, and her neighbors, who were her relatives, planned loudly of using jellyfish, electroshock remotely with the machine of God's voice, again together against it. If she was boasting, she would not pay attention to them, but it was like that, and they tortured her daily to make memories of her DNA and make her give up. They never succeeded in the city where she lived, except now that she had remembered her legal rights and proclaimed them every once I felt them, both them and those who convinced. He was boasting, the whore who had slept with his former Jew who was a slave to his family, and she with her cousin wanted to be writers. It was one of the reasons why they tortured her, to get the memories out of her DNA and write them down. She only remembered the covenants and the spiritual world, their rights and the legal right that they opened to him by unifying, even the dead. Already his eyes were being affected by remote electrical pressure, they wanted him to commit suicide, yes or yes. They were worse than in the other city where he lived. There the pressure was so great that he was with daily tachycardia, barely sustained and no longer wanted to live. His desire for death was so much that once he looked at the sea sitting on the balcony, he unconsciously unfolded and headed to the old man. I really wasn't sure who it was. He had never seen her face, and for her they were only childhood dreams until that day. It could be his grandfather or father, or of his astral projected relatives, or the one that was missing a little finger, or the one who accompanied her to a moon to translate a stone that had the history of the earth engraved on it, that I saw hidden gold inlays with the sunset, or the one who had been raised in the Vatican, with whom as a child I liked to play in the astral plane. The loneliness of both attracted them as a magnet, or the young immortal who sometimes found themselves observing history through the vertices of time. He told him that he had eaten the fruit of the tree of life, that he was immortal, and the one who rebelled tempted him to leave the holy place, and from there wandered the earth. It reminded her of her dream as a child. He went to say goodbye, but found him at a conference and entered in the middle of his speech at the amphitheater. He saw his clothes and the color in the middle of the place change color. Seconds later he saw himself again in his body, and he was projected astral sitting next to him. He spoke to his spirit but did not understand. He felt his ex, got up, watched him for a few minutes, said something disgusted and left. From that day on, his desire for death moved away from her and found strength to resist their attacks. That night he felt again the currents in his whole body, especially in his head, the heavens, the lobes. He could not stand until he felt hands on his head and a friendly voice. Resists. They were those who had ever helped in prayer or astral on their own. They reminded him of how he had helped each one and the nickname they gave him, the Electric Girl. Resist, remember how I met you, said the one who had his hands in his hands. Remember what you did to my army to protect the children that escaped from us, the Nazis. Remember what I took away from leaving me without men. The lightning said, "You took the lightning." I said, "This is not theirs," and threw it. "Yes, you were a baby, now I give it to you." At that time he was his only direct relative, so he had that authority. Do you remember the seal I recognized? The seal of Queen Watcher, which only her direct descendants have. The power of the eternal covenants is in you, repeat them, embrace them. He took the words in his dreams, lightning, and everything calmed down. He was able to sleep peacefully, seeing that his angel hugged her, telling her that she was complete. If something happened with their enemies, they never said it. They left her alone for a while.